I went to 20th Century Fox, and they said, we want you to do something about teenagers. And I thought, I'm so tired of doing stuff about teenagers, but they said, we want you to do something about the in crowd. And I thought, I'll do it if I can make fun of them. So we developed this script. It was a pilot for a TV show, and it was about this girl that was just completely happy no matter what happened. And I was really kind of getting into that kind of a character.
No Worries was the original television script that Amy wrote. Then we went to I Was a Teenager, because with every new draft that Amy writes, she picks a whole new title. Not that we're going to use the title, but instead of the date or the number of the draft, it's like, oh, that was the I Was a Teenager, you know. It's easier to remember.
But nothing happened with it. They passed on it, they didn't get it, and a number of things were sort of falling through, and I was just getting very frustrated. So I switched agents, and when I had my new agents, they said, what have you been working on? So I showed Ken Stovitz, one of the agents there, this pilot, and he said, this is too good for TV, you should make this into a feature. And I started to think, well, what's a larger context for that kind of a nothing can go wrong, always looks through rose-colored glasses kind of a girl. And I remembered Emma, which I had read in college. So I took it out and reread it, and I said, you know what, unconsciously I've been writing an Emma-like character because I always loved it. And part of it had sort of stored it away in my brain. Especially the way she makes over people all the time.
Project?
She was matchmaking.
You could take Ty on your way up to Sunset.
Deciding where people should or shouldn't go.
Wow, a party.
It's in the valley. The cops usually break them up in less than an hour, and it takes that long to get there.
She was very manipulative, but in a nice way. She just wanted to make everything nice for everybody. She lived in a sort of fantasy of what could be for everybody else, which in a way is not that different from being a movie director. You're always sort of fiddling with people and changing their look. And, you know, if Emma was alive today, she'd be directing films. And so I really related to her and got into it. And the plot was so brilliantly laid out in Emma. So I tried to take all the things that were in this sort of pretty, you know, 1800s world and see what would that be like if it was Beverly Hills.
Friday night and everyone's moving. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing, heading down.
But I wasn't treating it like the real Beverly Hills, although I did hang out in the stores and go to the places the teenagers hang out, and I was at Beverly Hills High School for a while. But I would go to the debate class. Mr. Hall, who was the teacher of the debate class, was a friend, and he let me sit in the classes and hang out with the kids, and I'd talk to them, and they were a great bunch of kids. But one girl had to give a debate on, the question was animal testing, and she was supposed to take the against animal testing stance. And she just had this like way of talking where she goes, okay, like animal testing is bad because you could learn the same things if you use like a computer. So if you can do the same things like in other ways, then you shouldn't have to, and like the hands would go, like one would go and then the other would go, and it was like, and she kept saying the same things over and over, and that just cracked me up. But I would pick up little things from the kids, but to use the absolute reality wouldn't have been as colorful, it wouldn't have been as specific, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
You like Billie Holiday?
I love him.
Right.
It's more of a made-up world. It's a fantasy world. So I told the idea, you know, to Fox, the movie people. Fox bought the rights, and the executive I was working with there, Elizabeth Gabler, had also been deeply into Jane Austen. So she was real familiar with the story, and we started to develop it.
But the guys at 20th Century Fox, they didn't really get it. I mean, The men didn't get it. They wanted Amy to rewrite it so that there wouldn't be so many women. Like there were 3 girls, and they didn't want there to be like 3 leads. And also PCU and a couple other, comedies came out, teen comedies that didn't do well.
And they said, no more stupid high school stuff, which was sort of like laying down a law. And I seemed, just because of the title, to fall into that group.
Cher, she is toe up. Our stock would plummet.
It was pretty much a hard script for people to understand. They would read it and go, what are they talking about?
Mr. Hall, I was surfing the Crimson Wave. I had to haul ass to the ladies.
And it didn't seem like, one of those slob comedies. And so what's the point of a high school comedy that's not like a raunchy high school comedy? So nobody wanted it, which was really depressing. And so they put the movie in turnaround.
That ended up being at least 6 months, and in a fluke, somebody who was in music that had the script happened to show it to Scott Rudin.
And then Scott Rudin read it and totally got it. And as soon as he said he liked it, there was a bidding war for it. Every studio wanted it.
And Paramount won. And we were with Scott Rudin, and that was so cool.
Then Scott had a relationship with Paramount, which I was really happy to be at Paramount, because what Paramount was something that had Nickelodeon and MTV and had a lot of young stuff happening there, and I wanted to be part of that.
Scott Rudin's company sent me a script, and I read it and fell in love with it. It was, totally nothing like I would be looking for. It was a comedy, which most photographers don't look for it. The script is so charming because you read about the rich girl, and this is someone that we're taught and accustomed to loathing. Here's the rich girl that has all the advantages, and she's snotty and doesn't know anything about the world.
Ms. Stroger, that machine is just a lawsuit waiting to happen.
And yet, halfway through, you love this girl. And I was like, this is an incredible turn. And then the minute I met Amy, I was like, this is going to be good. This is fine.
Cut. That has some cute shit.
When I first met her, I didn't know what to expect, but she was totally charming and very self-effacing about her script. She would take no compliment whatsoever. And I never do that. I'm never effusive about that stuff because I don't like to receive compliments myself. But I couldn't stop myself. This is a great script. This is like, someone needs to tell you this is a great script. And she was just totally straightforward and very self-effacing, and I liked her immediately. Is this too regular?
Too regular?
The key thing I remember is talking to Amy and asking her what this movie should look like. And she said, happy. I said, well, what does happy look like? She said, happy. I know it when I see it. She was giving me the Supreme Court line. So I said, okay. And then I went and looked at every movie even remotely comparable, and many that weren't, and printed out all the pictures I could think of, and came into her office a couple days later and laid out these hundreds of pictures on the floor. Okay, let's look at these pictures and tell me which ones are happy and which ones are not. And she was absolutely specific. This one's happy? That's not happy. This one's happy? That's not happy. And at the end, you put a pile of pictures that are happy, and it is Clueless. She picked it out.
It was the closest I've ever come to something being in my head to being on the screen. When you read a script that you wrote, what you were thinking at first and what it turned out to be, they're very different. It turns into a separate animal. On Clueless, it didn't. It was exactly the way I wanted it.
It was like some sort of alternate universe. It was like the Twilight Zone or something. Cut.